morning, everyone. It's Winona. Hope everything's going well in your world. It's a beautiful day here. It's cool. It's only 12 degrees and the wind is chilly, but the sun is shining and it sounds like it's going to be plus 30 all next week. So I'll enjoy the cooler weather while I can. Anyway, today we're going to work on my Pink Christmas journal. We're going to do a few things. We're going to work on my Pink Christmas journal. I want to make some ruffles for it. I also want to dye some seam binding. And if we have time, we're going to glue in some ephemera and finish some ephemera I made for it. So I thought I'd share with you the seam binding I dyed for this journal. I did it a few weeks ago. So I've got this nice blue that I dyed. And this nice green. And I think I might have used Tim Holtz reinkers for this. I'm not positive, but I think I did because I think they're still out. Yes, I did. Just 1 minute. I'll reach across here and grab them. So the blue is tumbled glass, and this green is cracked pistachio. I'll maybe put these away when I'm done the video now. This light pink is spun sugar. It's very pretty. And this deep, almost a toss between fuchsia and magenta, is picked raspberry. This goes really well with the flowers I put on the front of my journal. So today, before we begin anything with the journal, I'm going to get the dirty stuff over with. And I'm going to dye some seam binding. And I'm a close to my heart representative, although I don't really sell close to my heart. A few friends and I buy it together. And these are the inks I'm going to use today. Every time I buy an ink pad, I buy a reinker to go with it. That way I can do much more with my ink pads. So I've got almond, sage, smoothie, and peach. These are magnetic. I love these new ink pads because they're just so easy to open, and then you can squeeze them together. And I'm not advertising for close to my heart. It's a product I like. But you can squeeze them together, and then you get ink on this side that you can use to paint with. You can smoosh this ink on your mat, your glass mat, or silicone mat, or something that it won't soak into, and spritz a little water in there, and you can dye your seam binding in that just by smooshing it around in there a bit. But I have these little tubs that I like to use, so I'm just going to put these back where they belong. And I'll bring out my little containers. I love vintage finds. And I love estate sales, auction sales, garage sales. So I have these 4 Pyrex dishes that weren't in tip-top shape. They've got chips in them. And I just thought, you know, I'm going to use them in my studio. So what I do is I take a little bit of my reinker, and I'm going to put it in there. And you don't need a whole lot, depending on how saturated you want it to look. So put a few drops. This one is smoothie. I've had this one for a few years. Almond. I've decided I want to start dyeing different colors of seam binding until I use up my roll, and then I'll have it on hand when I need it, instead of always having to make as you need. Okay, so there's the peach. So now I'm just going to spritz some water in there to kind of dilute it a bit. And these are water-based, so you can add water, but that also means that if your seam binding gets wet, it'll lose its color. So, but I don't think journals are meant to get wet. So then what I do is I grab the seam binding in one hand and I pull it so that it's in my other hand, and that's a wingspan. And then I cut it, and then I just do the same 4 times. And then I'm just going to crumple this up. And for now, I'm just going to throw it in there. I'm not going to move it around yet because I want to cut all of them. So I'll get them all cut here. And again, and as this sits and dries, I'm going to go in and I'm going to crumple more and keep crumpling until it's dry. And probably when it's almost dry, I'll take my heat gun to it and dry it the rest of the way. And that, in a way, it heat sets it, but I don't know how permanent that heat set would be. And there's that. So if you have ink pads that you buy, you know, and if you really like the colors, it's probably not a bad idea to buy the re-inkers for them, because then you have them to re-ink with, but you also can play around and do other art projects with them. So now I'm just gonna, my famous word is smoosh. And if I wasn't working in the journal right away, I'm gonna add more water to that. And actually, I'm going to spritz them all because generally I make my seam binding wet as well. And I forgot that step. Sorry about all the clattering. I've been having a few really good days and have been able, to get some videos done. And I started another channel for the beading because I didn't know if anyone from this channel would be interested in it. And it's called The Left-Handed Beater. And I've done a few unboxings for it. And yesterday I made a necklace. And I did a video of that. But I've scheduled all my videos because right now I'm having good days. So I'm doing as many videos as I can. But who knows, you know, next week I might not feel well. And I won't get any done. So what I've tried to do is schedule them every 2 days to have a video go up. So, and I'm going to try the same for this channel. I'm also going to try to keep my videos to around a half an hour mark, which I forgot to set my timer again. And I'm going to do right away because, actually I'll just do this. Siri, set an alarm for 25 minutes. Okay, so these can sit now. And remember, as they're drying, just take them and crumple them up. Because this is a water-based ink, you can choose to wear gloves if you want. But if you get ink on your fingers, it'll wash off with soap and water. So you don't have to worry about permanently staining your hands. So I'll put these to the side. And the nice thing about these containers is they clean up so well. It doesn't take much. And they're clean, basically just rinsing out. Excuse me, I need to have a drink here. My throat is really dry. Okay, so we're done with that project. And on to the next. We're going to make some ruffles for this journal. I'm not sure if this is going to go in there. This is a piece that I cut. And when I was trying to ravel it, I accidentally cut into there. But I'm hoping when we ruffle it, that either I'll cut off that part or it won't be in an area where it's noticeable, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then I've got the fabric that I used on the inside cover, which is a bit of a stiffer fabric. And that's big enough I can cut some strips from. So I'm not sure how it'll fray, but we'll try it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna take a snip. Now, if you choose that you don't want the frayed look, which would be much easier, I think I'm going to take a snip here so that the edge is frayed. You just tear it. If you want a straight cut look, you can cut it with a scissor or a rotary cutter and a ruler. But I'm just going to tear it. And I'll save this and use this for something else. It's a shame it wasn't a bit longer. It could be a tie, but it'll get used. So now I've got a frayed edge. So now I'm going to cut, I think about, what is that, an inch? Yeah, about an inch to an inch and a half, maybe an inch and a quarter. I'm going to take a snip and I'm just going to cut a couple of strips of that. And you don't have to be perfect. They don't have to match. Isn't this pretty fabric with all this glitz and glam? Here I am working on Christmas, finishing Christmas, and it's so sunny outside. Okay, I'm going to move these to the side as well. And these can go to the side too. Okay, and these are my scissors for sewing, because if you use your scissors a lot on paper, it dulls them, and they won't cut fabric or thread. Okay, I want to give you a sewing tip. If you have trouble when you're starting out, I'm just looking for a little scrap of fabric I can use. Where's my scissors? If you have trouble starting out and your fabric doesn't want to feed through and you end up with a mess under your feed dogs here, this is a quilter's tip, I should say, and it's called using a leader and an ender. So what you would do, I've never experienced this sewing through paper, but sewing through fabric often, especially tiny pieces. Sewing machines are meant to sew through 2 layers of fabric. They're not meant to sew through. They're not meant to sew through 1 layer, because the bobbin thread and the top thread are meant to meet in between these 2 layers. So when I make a leader and ender, I have 2 layers of fabric, and you put it under your presser foot and you start sewing. And then when you put your next piece in, it won't go under. It won't get pulled under like it tends to when you first start with it. So that's one tip from my years of sewing. Another tip for doing ruffles, I don't know if you've ever done a ruffle and you found that when you cut it, it starts to come apart. That's generally because you're just doing a zigzag, a zig, a zag, a zig, a zag. I'm going to do what's called a triple stitch zigzag, and it's going to go stitch, 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 and then it's going to come over stitch, 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 and then over stitch, stitch, stitch. And that will make it less likely to come apart as you cut your little ruffles up. Just another little tip again. Okay, so we'll grab this. And I don't generally do ruffles on this machine. I usually do ruffles on my actual sewing machine. But I'm going to take, just hold on a second. I'm going to see if I can find something here. I want to look and see if this makes a difference in the camera. It needs to be higher. Okay, I'm going to grab another book. I think this will help you to see me sewing better. What do I have here? A room filled with books and I can't find a book. Oh, this is a nice old hymnal. Anyway. So, this tripod, I think you can see now. My sewing machine's a little high, but I sew enough I should be able to do this. So my triple stretch stitch, oh man, some days is a 5. So I'm going to turn my machine to a 5. And I'm just going to start. I hope I don't get my head in here helping you guys, because I will not show this video if that happens. So I'm going to slow my machine down a bit because I'm not using my foot pedal, and I have less control when you don't use a foot pedal. And I'm just going to do my triple stitch. Oh, that's too slow. Stop. And then I'm going to do another ruffle. Come on. It's a little bit harder when it's this way. Keep your fingers away from your needle. I accidentally, all the years I've been sewing, I was fixing my husband's vest the other day and I almost hit my finger. It hit my nail. I never had that happen. Okay, we're gonna go again. Oops. This machine is wonderful. Have you ever been sewing and all of a sudden you have this huge mess underneath your thread? It's because you forgot to lower your presser foot. you forgot to put that tension on your upper thread. So this way, this machine won't sew if it's not lowered. So I'll just snap this up again. And put my pressure foot down. And you don't have to be super fast at doing this. It's not a race. Like maybe if I stood, I could see better. Oh, that's awesome. Oops, wrong button. This machine also has a needle down feature, which makes it easier to position. Never try to position with your needle up because you're going to lose where your fabric is. Always make sure your needle's down before you lift that presser foot if you want to move your fabric. And I think if I could use my feet to sew with again, I could probably do this much faster. But I can't, so I won't. Oh, there we go. This is going to be a double ruffle. So can't think of any stories to tell you today. I'm going for a massage tomorrow. Oh man, do I need it. I don't know what I did. I think it was when we were planting potatoes. I was pulling out grass in the shrubs and oh, my back has been really sore ever since. But I could sing to you, but you probably don't want that either. It's funny, my granddaughter, when her mom sings, she goes shh, but she never goes shh when I sing. Okay, push that one up. I think what I'll do, oops, is I will turn the camera off and I will sew the rest of the ruffles, and then I will come back to you when they're done. Because this is, once you've seen this one, I don't think you need to see me sew the others. And if I was doing just a straight zig and zag and zig and zag, it would go much quicker too. Another little secret is, if you want your thread, your sewing to show, use a contrasting thread. If you're unsure, or if you want the fabric to be the star, use a thread that blends in. Okay, so before I go, instead of cutting that and having the same problem, actually, I would feed this fabric in and just keep going. But because I'm going to stop here, and I want to start again later, I'm going to take this piece of fabric that I started with, I'm going to slide it in, and I'm going to have the machine go, and then I'm just going to slide it in after. That way there, when I go to start sewing again, it won't drag that fabric under. So I hope that maybe helps someone. I'm going to put this to the side and put my books away for now. And here's the ruffle that we made. Here's the ruffle. It's not perfect and it's not straight. It's got a little bit of give because of that triple stitch. It's got a little bit of give. But when I go to cut it, it's got a few stitches to work through before it starts to come apart. And if I cut it, I would probably put a little dab of glue where I cut it. So anyway, I'm going to turn off the camera and I'll come back to you when I've got the other pieces sewn. Okay, I am so sorry about that. I was videoing and thankfully my husband came in and interrupted me because I went to pause this and I found out it wasn't filming. And I didn't realize I delete my videos, but I've never done this many videos in a row. And I never realized that you have to delete them from the recently deleted file. And I had filled my iPad up, so it stopped filming. So I got that all fixed, and I'll maybe show you where we left off, or what I did while that video stopped, I guess. So I finished my ruffles, and I cut the blue one in half and decided I wasn't using it. And I cut off the part that was snipped, and I was going to throw it away, but decided, you know, I can use that for clusters and things like that. So I put it to the side, and then I cut one of my, this is one that I made off camera, and it's fuller than this one is, and part of that is the fabric itself. It's a stiffer fabric, and the other part is that I was able to sit and do it and feed it in slowly. So anyway, I'm kind of flustered here, but so I cut that other one in thirds, and I was in the process of gluing them in and realized my camera wasn't working. So this is what I did off camera, is I glued this lace here, and then you could see the glue, the way I did it, so I added this trim as well. And then I did that as well on the back, although I haven't added the trim there. Then I ran out of that lace. This is all I've got left. And I'm thinking I bought it at Fabricland because I only had a little bit of it, and the lace at Fabricland was really expensive. So that's why I think I got it from there. So I grabbed another piece of lace and I put it in here, and I put it in further because it would hang out so much further than the rest. See, I kind of like that look. And then I as I said, I cut my ruffles in thirds, so I've glued this ruffle here, and I glued another ruffle here, and somewhere down here I have the third ruffle. Somewhere. I'm beginning to think I should be out planting my garden instead of, oopsie, instead of doing this, and maybe that's the powers that be telling me you should be outside, you shouldn't be inside. Now what did I do with that last ruffle? I got all flustered, and I have no idea where it is. Let's shake this. Oops. No. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I glued the first one on this page. So I'll find that page. And the reason you do that is just that it evenly spaces it. And it's not that critical. Like, I don't know what page that is. I think it's this one. So I'm going to glue this one down here. And again, I'll grab my book to glue on. Oopsie. I'll try to straighten that out. Boy, that kind of really upset me that it did that. Okay, I left this open while I was gone, so now it's kind of congested. These are just some cheap stick pins. I don't know where I got them from. They must have came with something or as a gift or something, but I don't use them when I sew, so I use them here. I'm going to leave that in there for a second. I'm going to grab a wet wipe. Okay. Someday I'll do a studio tour. I have the most wonderful desk I got from IKEA years ago, and it's kind of a funny story. My husband has never flown, and he decided he wanted to buy this truck, and the truck was in Edmonton, which is, oh, probably more than 10 hours from here. So he decided, okay, he's going to buy this truck. And we got tickets to fly into Edmonton. And so we flew, which was an experience for him. And then we got there, and it was winter. It was November. And it was around 5:30, I think, when we got there. And it was starting to get dark. The dealer met us at the airport. Went to the dealership. By the time they were done with all the paperwork and that, it was dark. Found out how to go to IKEA, because you know, you got to do the important things. We went to IKEA, and I got 2 desks, and we loaded them in the back seat of the new truck. And I wanted to go to the mall. We went to the mall, but by this time everything was closing. We hadn't even eaten supper yet. And there was a Outback Steakhouse, which we don't have in Saskatchewan, and it was across the street. And I thought, well, let's go there for supper. Well, my husband, it's a new vehicle, you're not used to driving. Edmonton has over 1 million people in it. Regina has 100,000. You know, there's a big difference driving, and you had to go around, like you couldn't just drive across the street to get to it. So, so we tried to get to it and we didn't, and we got on a road and we just kept driving and driving, and finally we saw a superstore, and I said, it was getting really cold and I didn't have a jacket. So I said to Dave, well, let's pop in there and I'll pick up a jacket. I think I had my leather coat with me, and it was freezing. And so we stopped into Superstore. I bought a coat. We had no idea where we were. Didn't have GPS or anything back then. And kept going and going and going. And before we knew it, we were in Vegreville, which is a town outside of Edmonton, on the way home. So I said, it was like 2 o'clock by then, and I said to Dave in the morning, and I said, we've got to get a room. Like, this is ridiculous. So we got a room there. So we flew to Edmonton. We never go anywhere together. We flew to Edmonton. Never saw Edmonton. It was dark the whole time, but I did go to IKEA. And the nice thing is, my mom lives in Regina. We left my vehicle in Regina, and Dave took the truck home with all my IKEA furniture, and my son came over, and by the time I got home, they had both my desks set up. So I just thought that was wonderful. But anyway, this desk, the legs are Alex units, and they're drawers, lots of drawers, and the top is got glass on the top, and it sits on top of a shelf, and I can slide, like, my cutter goes under there, my score pals, my stamp positioners, and they just sit under there all the time. When I had my computer on my desk, I would slide the keyboard under there, and then they're out of the way. But I don't think they sell this top anymore. And it was cheap. Like, I picked up both desks. I think I spent something like $300 or $400, and I had 2 desks for my craft room. And the other one is a table with, I think they're called Calyx units. And I have my embroidery machine set up over there. Oh, my watch is telling me to breathe. I don't have time to breathe. I have crafting to do. So anyway, there we go. I'll clean up my mess. I think we'll call that quits for the day. So we got the, well, that doesn't look very straight to me. I'm not very good at straight. So we put lace on this page, and then, oh no. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness it landed on the embossing. I see a little piece of glue there. So and we made some ruffles, and I put a ruffle here, and then we've got some lace here and a ruffle here, and then we go lace again and a ruffle. You almost should have some parchment paper or wax paper ready. And then we've got a ruffle there, and then we've got that there, and then the end of our book. So I think I'll leave us here today, and I think the next time we're gonna, excuse me, we're gonna glue our pockets in and try to make some more embellishments for this journal. I wish you lots of luck and happiness until we meet again. Thank you. Bye-bye.